I had a request from a reviewer to analyze the Porto Cima area of the Lake of the Ozarks, and this one should be pretty simple, so let's just get right to it. So I think that I've captured everything that's in Porto Cima and excluded everything that's not. If I mess this up, someone please let me know. But there's not a ton of rentals here, but as always, let's start with a top-down overview of the lake. When we take a look at the top-down numbers of the Lake of the Ozarks and encompasses all the rentals, all the condos, everything out there, this is what we get. Again, as I always say, this is not all that impressive, but let's go ahead and filter this down to the Porto Cima area. And I pre-made this filter earlier, and we'll just apply it. And you see this dramatic difference. These are big-time numbers. So let's dig in. Let's first take a look at how many listings there are in this little area, and there's only 32 here. Which is not a lot. Remember, there are 1,100 condos in the little Osage Beach area alone, so 32 listings in this area here is really not all that many. We do see a steady increase year over year, so they are increasing here. And folks, as I always say, just a little more than half of you have this on both Airbnb and VRBO. That is a mistake, especially in a high-value area like this. Occupancy-wise, it kind of tells the same story of the entire lake. The summer is great. The fall is meh. The winter absolutely sucks here. And as I said in the last video, the bigger properties are much harder to fill during the off-season. There's just not a demand to have a 7-bedroom house in the middle of winter unless you're getting like a family reunion or something like that. There's only so many of those that happen in the off-season. And look at that. The February numbers from earlier this year were only 6% in these 32 listings. That is very low. Revenue-wise is where things start to get spicy, where you have $136,000 a year average. That is very high. That might be the highest spot on the lake. I don't know for sure, but it is definitely one of the highest spots on the lake. And you can see, though, just how dependent we are on the summer months for this revenue in this chart here. Now, if we look at the top short-term rentals to see what is making these numbers so high, it's easy to see what's going on here. Boom, here we go. We got one property that made $275K in just 178 days. Another one here, 226K, 201K, 160K. So these are all steadily producing over six figures. But let me tell you my problem with Porto Cima, and this may or may not be a problem for you. When you go to Porto Cima and you start looking at where these big listings are at, and you kind of scan through here, see where they're popping up, and you go over to Zillow, and you look at the house prices here, you see a lot of them running between 3 and 4 million. So how well does that cash flow if you're trying to pay for your mortgage with this? So if I pop over to my super secret trusty spreadsheet here, and I start plugging in numbers, let's just say I buy a $3 million home here, I'm doing a 20% down payment, and I start factoring in how much I can make, 237K will be the high end of Porto Cima, and I'm paying $500 a clean. If you think you can get it cheaper than that, good luck. And then we start factoring all these utilities here, which I may be lowballing. You find that I still have a negative cash flow, and that's with self-management. If you want a property manager, just say that you want one that's 20%, which is pretty standard. It even gets even more dramatic than that. But let's just say that you're not going to mortgage this, you're going to pay with cash. Well, we can figure that out too. We'll move our down payment to 100%. And as you can see, we do start the cash flow at this point. So if you're going to pay cash, maybe this becomes a better option for you. What's going to scare a lot of traditional real estate investors away is this cap rate, which is 4.3%. And there's not anything wrong with that, but it becomes a question of if you're going to take $3 million and put it in the stock market or somewhere else, what are you getting a better return for? So, like I said, this may or may not be a problem for you. If your goal is to get a house in Porto Cima and you really want one and you want to cash flow it by paying all cash, you can definitely do that. That might be a good option for you. But if you're trying to treat this as a true investment property, if you're trying to mortgage and leverage it, you're going to have a tough time. Because like I said, there is a cap on how much you can pay for a house in this lake before you start bumping up against the revenue limits that this lake can produce. So if I'm looking at Porto Cima, I'm kind of saying, hey, what's going on with this one here that's 150K? It looks like it's lakefront. I'm not digging into this on this video, but that's kind of how I look at Porto Cima. Is you want to look for a deal, and you should have a good opportunity to cash flow at that point.